hear me okay back there?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, I'm excited to be here, and ironically, because Cyd Tetro's out of town, I'm taking his spot today to do that. Is this Cyd's class?
No.
Oh, okay, so just other people are in Cyd's class.
Last week.
Oh, he gave us an assignment. Gotcha. Okay, but he also teaches the class. So one of the things that I love talking about as I come is a little bit about kind of my background and how I got here, and some of the opportunities that I've had along the way. And so as I was thinking about what might be interesting to share with you today, as you know, you're in the midst of your degree. So one of the things, I came through BYU. I did my undergrad in computer science, and I minored in dance. That gave me good balance. And then I did my MBA also at BYU. So I know BYU well. I came through here, and I've had a lot of really interesting opportunities along the way. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the things that I've learned over the course of my career that I believe have become really important into the next steps and where I'm headed. So before I start, one of the things I wanted to have you do is I want you to turn to your neighbor and I want you to tell them where you think you're going to be in 5 years from now and why. So find a partner, turn and tell them. Okay, I was saying when you said Cyd, because he teaches a class here. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds. Okay, time's up. Okay, so share with me a little bit. So what did you learn? You just heard someone, or you yourself told you. What did you hear as you asked someone, or they told you? Yeah. Be traveling the world. Okay, I think that's a good idea. What else did you hear? That's not all you heard, because I heard a lot of chatter. So what else did you hear from someone? Yeah. Both of you used the word hopefully. 5 years feels a little far. That's right. Okay, that's a great observation. Yeah. Still in school. Okay, which is totally fair. Right? There's all sorts of paths. Any other insights you had as you listened to someone else, or as you've reflected on where you were going to be? Yeah. Life changes, right? There might be some life changes in there. So I was thinking a little bit about when I was coming here, and that I was a little bit of a planner. Still am in some parts, other parts not as much. And when I sat in your shoes, I was pretty sure I had a 5-year and a 10-year plan, right? And that it would look something like this as I went into industry, or I had specific roles, or specific jobs, or specific things. I remember even sharing those with some of my colleagues who are really good friends of mine, and that I had forgotten, and they would remind me. But one of the things that I've learned over the course of my career is that whatever you just said will happen on a curved path and not a straight line. So you know how you think about, I want this job, or I want to start this company, and then maybe I'll start this company, I'll sell this company, or I'm going to take this role, and maybe I'm going to move to this location. Well, the interesting thing about building our careers is that over the course of it, it will not be a straight line. And what becomes more important than where you will be next, or the job you have, are the skills that define you and how you take advantage of opportunities. So it's just a little bit of a background. So I put this picture up here because before the company I'm doing right now, I started a 3D printing company. And in our 3D printing company, you could become Iron Man or any character you wanted. So we'd take a high-res 3D scan of your face, and I did a partnership with Star Wars and Marvel and Major League Baseball and the NFL and Disney stores and Assassin's Creed, and we would scan those and take them in. Now, if you had asked me if I would ever end up in that place, I would have never imagined that to be true. And these happen to be some of my alter egos. And the only reason I'm a Broncos fan is because we were at the Super Bowl when it was the Broncos-Carolina game. And so that's why, I get to be a Broncos fan. But I wanted to tell you a little bit around my not straight line and then give you some of the lessons that I've learned as we talk today. So I did computer science. Now, when I went through computer science, there were a few things that I knew were true. I was not going to be a programmer. Now, I went through that entire curriculum, right? And I had to go through my operating system classes and my database classes and all of those other classes. But I also knew that I didn't want to be a developer, but that having a technical background would open a lot of doors. And I also knew that I really wanted to be able to build stuff. And that I figured that somewhere along the way, getting my computer science degree, that would be possible. Now, this became evident in a number of ways. When I graduated with my degree, I didn't want to be a developer, but I also wanted to go figure out what I wanted to do. And so I put my resume in with 100 companies, and I did 100 job interviews. Because I figured if I did 100 job interviews, some of them wouldn't like me, I wouldn't like some of them. I get to fly around and take advantage of a bunch of opportunities. So I ended up doing that, and at the outcome of that, I also had decided to go to grad school. I should have think about going to grad school, didn't know if I would. So I took the GRE and the GMAT, and I applied to different grad schools to see if I would get in. And as I was doing all of that, it just so happened that I got acceptance to BYU's daytime MBA program and one of my job offers at the exact same time. And so I decided to take that opportunity at that moment. And I'll talk a little bit later about one of the lessons that I learned from that. And I think one of the interesting things from that is it ended up taking me to a company called Novell. It used to be a really cool company here, right? And I went at kind of one of its peaks. And what was really interesting is they offered me a job at the same time. And so I went to them and I said, if I come work with you, will you work with my daytime MBA schedule? And they said yes. Now, back then, BYU didn't make you sign something that you wouldn't work. So it was fine. So I took both of those and I went through both of those programs. But on my path of not knowing and my non-straight line path, I ended up going to work for Novell. And about 6 months into my work for Novell, I started traveling the world and getting to be a trainer for advanced NDS troubleshooting all over the world, and have this experience of meeting all of their biggest clients and doing all of those things. Now, did you ask me when I graduated if that's what I've been doing? I would have told you no. And then the other thing that was interesting is not only did I end up being able to go there and have this whole other experience, that I find that in your career path, the more opportunistic you can be, meaning as opportunities come, figure out how to take advantage of them, the more you develop your skill sets, and the more opportunities actually even come your way. So I worked for Novell for a few years, and I did another startup in between that we eventually sold to what became the Microsoft office here in the state. And then the gentleman that I was, he was the CTO and I was the CMO at this company. And he left, and he went to go head up Disney research. So he has a PhD in computational biophysics. He's one of the smartest guys I know. And I was coming off of a company, and he said to me, hey, Cyd, do you want to come work at Disney, in Disney research, which is an Imagineering, and do technology commercialization? And so there was this, and this is how my job interview went. I talked to him one day, I flew down the next day, and I met with the team of people there, and it went something like this. Cyd, we're starting a brand new entrepreneur in residence program. We have no idea what it looks like. You'd be the very first one. We don't know how successful it will be, but do you want to come try? And I sat there only for a few seconds and said, not very often do people get the opportunity to go work at Disney in Imagineering, in technology commercialization. I think I should say yes, no matter what happens. And so I said yes. And so I went to work for Disney for about 4 years. And my entire job there was to take leading edge technology coming out of our academic research arms that are tied to CMU and Harvard and MIT and ETH from Switzerland, and see if we could build actual businesses out of them. So was the technology interesting enough? Can I get a business unit who would actually take it? Can I get the project funded? Can we build it? And can we deploy it? And inside of Disney Research and my job there, it was across all sorts of business units. So Disney Company includes not only theme parks that you all think about, but it also includes things like ESPN and ABC and Interactive and studios. So I got to think about how technology influenced all of those. Now, when I was sitting in your seat, I would never have imagined that opportunity would come, right? It was not possible because I wasn't thinking. But the thing that happened over the beginning part of my career is that I focused on developing skills and networks and other things that have become really important and vital to actually creating opportunity. Over the course of my career, I actually cannot remember the last time I interviewed for a job, because the doors have opened because of the opportunities that I've taken advantage of and the networks that I've created. And don't worry, I'm going to leave you with my 5 nuggets a little bit later, but I want to kind of share with you the journey that I had the opportunity to go on. One of the projects, how many of you have been to World of Color? Okay, so one of my projects was the programmable LED ear hats, where if you watch a nighttime spectacular, you can become part of the show instead of just an observer in the show. So on this particular night, it was opening night of Cars Land. And there were 3,000 people in the audience, all wearing programmable LED ear hats. And what was really, so one of the things that I learned very most at Disney, and that stays with me today, was the art of storytelling and what it meant to actually create compelling experiences for users, because that's what they're masterful at. Before, so I'd been a CMO, right? I came through the marketing realms. I know how to understand customers, engagement, acquisition. I know how to build marketing plans. I get it. I can do all of that. But there's a fundamental difference in the way a company like Disney approaches that, because it's all about how a customer gets fully integrated into an immersive story. And not just about that moment in time, but the relationship that it creates forever. And because of that, they develop and build things differently or think about those storylines differently. I built a Star Wars experience, which required me to dive in and understand everything about Star Wars fans and the Star Wars storylines in order to adequately build the story that we wanted to build, which puts me a little bit more on the Star Wars geek side than I might have normally been inside of there. But maybe you saw the Han Solo trailer yesterday, so you can see that over Memorial Day. But in the case of even World of Color, this came out of an idea that when you go to Disney and you watch the nighttime shows, most often you're just a spectator. You're actually not involved in the story. And how much more powerful would it be from an emotional experience for you as a guest in the park if you were an active participant? Like, why don't we make you an active participant? Why don't you become part of the show instead of just watching the show? And when you start to think about the guest that way, the entire experience you create changes. For me, that opportunity to be at Disney and have that experience on storytelling has become a pivotal moment in all of the things that I've done since then. Because one of the things that changed for me is appreciating how powerful the right stories can drive relationships, change behavior, and deliver outcomes. And since then, that has been woven into everything that I've possibly done, including things like so after I left Disney, I still stayed in the entertainment gaming world, and we decided to create a product called Super Awesome Me. So Hasbro created a custom toy line for us so that we could create you as your own superhero, which we then launched all over Toys R Us and Walmart's and Target's, basically an action figure with your face on it. And the reason that we were able, so people quite often ask me how we were able to get all of those deals. And do you want to know what the answer was? It was because when I went to sell the story for the company, I didn't once pitch technology. What I pitched was a story. So how many of you own something that has a superhero logo on it? Captain America, Iron Man, some favorite brand. You're all too afraid to raise your hands. Appreciate a few of you that are raising your hands. Right, we buy superhero merchandise because we want to be like those characters. They reflect something that we appreciate or drives us in those brands. So when we built this company, we followed that storyline. People want to be associated with the things they love most. Everyone watches the Super Bowl, well, half the people for commercials, and half the people because of the sport, right? Because when you watch those, there's something not only entertaining about it, but there's teams that you love, there's things that people aspire to be. It's a reflection of places that you want to go. And when you launch into understanding and building those stories, you create something people want to become. When we were so we had the opportunity to take both our Major League Baseball and our NFL license to the Super Bowl and to the World Series. And in all of those cases, 95% of the people who would step into our scanning experience would buy at over $120 ASP. And they do that because if I catch you when you're at the Super Bowl, it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And you want to remember that. You want to think about those teams that are there. You want to play for your favorite team if you show up at the World Series or at the All-Star game. And when you can tap into those. And so that's been one of those, couldn't have predicted I was on that path, but doing so created this whole other tier of opportunities for me. So I'm going to leave you with kind of 5 ideas that I want you to think about as really important to building and defining your career. Because the only thing that I know is that whatever you think you'll be doing in 10 years, you won't be doing. This is the only thing I know. In today's world, the stat says that the average person has 7 different careers before they're 40. And I don't mean different jobs. I mean fundamentally different careers. Right? So one of the women who co-founded Women Tech Council with me, she came through a patent attorney. She went chemical engineering, law school, patent attorney for 10 years, completely abandoned that to go into one career and then another career. This is the world that you live in, right? You live in a world where most likely you'll have lots of careers. So what becomes most important is figuring out how you take advantage of opportunities, how you will navigate that, and what's most important to build as your own skill set that translates across wherever you'll be. My job as product manager or chief marketing officer or co-founding Women Tech Council or starting my own business and having to raise venture capital, those are completely different, right? There might be some overlap, but it wasn't the same thing. So my first idea or thought I want to leave with you, and I talked a little bit about this, is this idea of you should not close your own doors. This is a really easy thing to do. You think of all the reasons something won't come true or might not be possible. We do it all the time, right? I'm not going to go apply for that job. I might not go for that major. I'm not going to take that class. I might not ask that person out on a date. Whatever it is, right? There's all these reasons and these stories that we tell ourselves before someone says no. So it's a guarantee in life you're not going to get everything you want. Right? You're not going to get every job that you go after. You're not going to get every opportunity that's in front of you. But if you decide to not go there first, then you have no shot at it whatsoever. And so instead of being the person that decides no before someone tells you no, just go for it. Because a lot of the times someone will tell you yes because they will want to. There's a TED Talk out there about, and some of you might have seen it, the one that's like 100, I can't remember its name, but it's like 100 ways to get no or something like that. And he ran an experiment where he wanted to show all of the ways that people would tell him no for really crazy things. And along the path he found that most of the time people want to help you get to yes. But you have to be willing to put yourself out there and eliminate those. And I have found that true time and time again in my life. And it happens also sometimes when I'm trying to close a deal. So I'm just going to go back to my Hasbro friends for a moment. So we'd started this 3D printing company, and I had the Major League Baseball license and the Marvel license and the Assassin's Creed license when I started. And Walmart, after I launched my very first 2 weeks, Walmart called me, and they said, hey, Cyd, can you launch, this is in June. He said, hey, Cyd, can you be in, how many Walmarts can you be in by September for Superhero September? That was the question. We're like little tiny startup, right? We just barely started, and I've been raising money. And I said to them, the answer I said to them was, as many as you can pay for. That was my answer. And not only that, I decided after I thought about it for a little bit that my price point was too high for Walmart. Walmart's got a lower demographic than, say, a Target or a Toys R Us. And my product price point at the time was about $90. I got to figure out how to get a below $50 price point to go into Walmart. That's what was sitting in my mind. Well, how am I going to do that? My best way to do that is to figure out if I can create a toy line, because Walmart's also going to have a better shot at a toy line. So then I realized that the only way to create a toy in the Marvel universe is to get Hasbro on my side, because Hasbro holds the global toy license. No one does anything without them anointing you. We didn't know anyone at Hasbro, but that's no problem. We found the name of the guy, we picked up the phone, we called him, and we said, hey, we need to come make a toy line with you, and Walmart wants us to launch by September. It's now July 1st. And they said, okay, that's interesting. We should figure out if you have any interesting technology. Well, short story, we pulled it all off. Hasbro agreed to help let us use their toy line. We launched inside of the Walmart stores, and Walmart paid for us to do it. And all because I promise you I could have told you the 1,000 reasons it was never going to happen. Right? I didn't have the relationships. I don't know anyone sitting at Hasbro. Walmart calls me out of the blue. I don't even have the money to go fund the entire thing to launch into Walmart. Right? All of those things are stacked against me. And I said, somewhere down the road, if it's not supposed to happen, someone will tell me no, but I'm going to go for it. And when you do that, amazing things happen because people want to help you along those paths. And you should just find the right people, and eventually some of it will work out and some of it won't, and that's completely fine. Okay, so the second one I want to leave with you is this idea of learn how to become fearless. So fear drives a lot of our behavior. It's the thing that holds us back very most often for going for the ask. But I've kind of come up with this, I've gotten to this point now, and I told you a little bit about the Hasbro story, where I'm like, if I don't ask, nothing will happen, and what's the worst they can say? So when I was in MBA school, they made us take a negotiations class. They didn't make us. I took the negotiations class from the law school. And that's probably one of the few classes that still stands with me today, all of the negotiation strategies that we went through. And the most common one, or one of the ones that we always talked about, was your BATNA. What's your best alternative to the negotiated agreement? It's the most important thing to understand when you're negotiating a deal. When you're standing in front of negotiating a deal, what's the worst thing that can happen? What will the other party do if they can't give you what you want? So what's your best alternative? That's the thing to know. And if you have nothing to lose, then you might as well ask. So after we had done that initial round with Hasbro decided to make a second version of the toy line for us. And they took me to a meeting with Target and Marvel and Hasbro, and we brokered a deal to launch the next round of them inside of the Target stores. Now, to get the Target deal required 40 meetings, and every department you can possibly negotiate with at Target to get that deal closed. And so we made it through. It took us like 6 months to get all of the way through this, and we were teeing up to be able to launch in time for holiday. So we're teeing up to install inline for holiday, and I get a call 2 weeks before our install date from one of my really big partners who is providing a critical component for the install inside of these Target stores. And on a Friday night at 5 o'clock, they told me they were going to miss the deadline and they were pulling out. And I had just signed my Target contract 2 weeks before, and I wasn't really sure what we were going to do. And so on Monday morning, I showed up with my team, and I basically posed this. I said, I might ask you to do the impossible, but we're going to go for it. And we're going to put every possible option out there. And we did. And what I found is that if you don't become driven by fear and that you just go for the ask, it kind of leads to my previous one of not shutting your own doors. You will get things that happen for you that you cannot get without them. And sometimes it's because you have nothing to learn. So we ended up going through this brainstorm. We missed our install date by 2 days after we pulled together every resource we could possibly know known to man. I think there were 150 of our family members who came the weekend before we had to ship out to get everything built. Because we had no other options in order to get them on the truck. Right? But we figured out how to ask those right questions, how to go for it, and how to do everything possible to pull it off. And I found many experiences in my career where I had to figure out how to be fearless. And they might have been scary situations. So I raised millions of dollars for our startup. And just as a couple of stats, as a female raising venture capital, my shot at raising that money is less than 5%. So when I was going to do my fundraising, and that's just the stat, my male counterparts have much higher success rate. Now we're working to change that, but it's still what it is today. So when I was going out to raise money, one of my friends, he said, okay, Cyd, just remember, you're going to end up doing 50 pitches in order to get a handful of those people to give you money. Now, that's a math problem. I get it. 50 pitches, ask for a bunch of money. But what starts happening when you do 45 of those pitches who all turn you down? Right? That means that every day you have to come back and say, can I go make the next pitch? Can I find the right market who will invest in me? And what it means is you're getting rejected every day on every level. Right? So you're evaluating, did I make the right business model decisions? Did I hire the right team? Did we make the right investments in the capital that we've already deployed? Every day you get to ask those questions in order to raise that money to build a company. And it taught me that in those moments, you have to be willing to go for it. You have to know what your alternatives are, and then you have to be willing just to go ask the questions. It requires you to put your fears aside. You have to eliminate the questions of what if I don't raise money, what if I don't see a pathway through, and just be willing to go for building those specific companies. And it doesn't come easy. I find myself even still today, so I since sold this company, and I left that company about 1.5 years ago. And in the fall of this year, we decided about 1 year ago to go experiment and start another company. So now our company is in the integration of digital to the physical world. So we build all of these innovation experiences that tie everything from beacons, geofences, mobile apps, identity, across all of those for really big companies. And we did a partnership with one of the Fortune 15. And I'd been working with them for about 8 months. And I needed the deal to be restructured so that it made more sense for us. Because we started it, we learned a bunch of stuff, and the deal no longer was making sense for the investment we were putting in. So I have a choice right at this point. I can either leave it, or I decided that I was just going to go all in, and I was just going to go ask. So there's a gentleman who runs a $12 billion business line, and he'd been involved in a lot of my projects. And I decided that at that point in time, my only option was to go ask him to basically do a multi-million-dollar deal with me. And the worst he was going to do is say no. Right? So I put my pitch together, and I went and asked, and guess what? He agreed to pull it together with me. Right? But again, right, had I let fear decide, or I had let the unknown, because my deal was with a totally different team previous to that, I would never have known. And I literally walked in with the mindset of, if I don't ask, I'll never get the deal, and it will continue not to make sense. So I might as well ask him, because the worst thing he's going to do is tell me no, and then I'll go figure out the rest. So you really, to be an entrepreneur, and the best entrepreneurs I watch have this ability to overcome their fear and to just be driven by trying to get something done. And even when they're afraid, they go for it. Because when you go for it, things will start to happen. So the third thing that I want to leave with you is this idea of being a builder. One of the most important things that you can do in both being an entrepreneur and working is to be someone that builds both people and things. Because it's a harder thing to do, and it requires you to be both aware of your surroundings and your limitations and the talents of people around you. One of the things that I might not have recognized it early on, but that has led to a lot of my opportunities, is my ability to build networks. So you hear like you should network all the time or go build networks. But networks don't come free, and they don't come easy, right? Being a builder requires that you give back before you expect something in return. Being a builder requires that you spend effort to help other people first, and then somewhere down the road, it will pay itself back. And I want to talk about being a builder in two ways: how you build networks and how you build leadership skills. I have a personal barometer when I work with teams, with anyone, my executive teams that are highly distributed, that I don't even have managerial responsibility to be. And this is how I evaluate how successful I am. If I walk away from that team, or the team disbands, or the company changes hands, or we get reorganized, or whatever, well, the people on my team still want to work with me. And when we walk away, will they say, next time you ask me to work with you, I would work with you and again in a heartbeat. That's how I decide if I've been good enough in any leadership or team role, is that people will want to work with me again. Because now, not everyone's going to love me, totally get it. But if by far the majority of people say, Cyd, you call me anytime and I will work with you, then I have done something right. Because it means that I have leveraged their talents, that the things that they're really good at, I have appreciated, that we have found a way for the whole team to work together and to achieve the outcomes that we want. If people walk away from you and they don't want to work with you again, you did not do your job. It probably means that you took all the responsibility, you tried to be the person in control, you had to always be right, and you didn't give people the ability to leverage their talents to make a contribution. And that is not the place you want to be. Because if you become the builder, the opportunities come to you. And if you don't become a builder, they will not. I know no one who walks away and says, I don't want to, because the other thing that I've learned over the course of all of the different jobs that I've had is my network is immensely connected. And because of that, the things that I do, good or bad, translate. is a total random story. So I'm in Walmart about last summer, and I live out in Cedar Hills. And I have a network on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, right? And some of them overlap and some of them don't. And I walk out of the parking lot in Walmart, and a guy stops me, and he's like, "Are you Cyd?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so he goes on to tell me that he's from New York, and that he's visiting in Utah, and that we're friends on Instagram. Okay, this is our connection. And I happen to also, he has family from here, so I happen to also know one of his brothers. But he and I have never met, except for being friends on Instagram and liking each other's posts, right? That's the extent of our friendship. So it happens that he takes my number, and we do a call a couple of weeks later, and it happens that he runs Estee Lauder's digital e-commerce division. And so he tapped me, and over the course of the last 6 months, I went and spoke at the Estee Lauder e-commerce kickoff meeting for them, and he and I are in the midst of doing some projects together, and I'm helping him a little bit, and he's helping me with some of my stuff, all because of a network connection, right, and a reputation that follows me in spheres that you would never imagine, right? It's a random Walmart in the state of Utah with a guy from New York who gets connected and creates those opportunities, right? And that happens all of the time. The people that I worked at Novell with, hundreds of them are in my network today and have given me opportunities, or our lives have connected over the years. My friends at Disney, it's exactly the same. None of those people live here in the state of Utah. Those people are all over the world. They're all over the country. And when I need something or they need something, we have the opportunity to do it. And it's because of the one idea that I believe in and that they believe in being a builder. And when you're a builder, you get really cool things to happen. The only reason I got Major League Baseball and the NFL and Major League Soccer is because I had a friend and we had worked on a project together, and he had access to all of them. And I picked up the phone and I made one phone call, and he took me into all of those so I could close the deal. That's the power of your network. And that's why you want to be someone everyone wants to work with. One of the other things that I find is really important is you have to find how you will give back. Time is your rarest commodity. I'm always out of time, right? I'm always balancing my family and my work and my church and my community. But by finding something that you're passionate about and that you can work with other people on, it actually leverages all the first three that I've been talking about, because you create something and you create a network of different people that allow you to both leverage your talents and create new opportunities and connections and help people. Because at the end of the day, I firmly believe that we were all put here to use the talents that we have been blessed with. And because of that, it is our responsibility to use them to bless the lives of other people. That's your job every day, right? And by doing that, it means in turn that your life will be blessed. Because everyone has different talents. We don't all look like me and we don't all look like you. But those talents are something that is your responsibility to both develop and use. And when you find a place where you can give back, you make an impact that you can't anticipate. So 10 years ago, we decided to create the Women Tech Council. And it's a group of both men and women. So Jeff, who introduced me, happens to also be in that group. It's all focused on the economic impact of women. When I came out of computer science, I was one of 3 women in my graduating class. For my entire career, I'm the only woman in the room, and I'm totally fine with that. But one of the things that we noticed, and that's been true, and if you don't follow the space, that's okay, is all teams that outperform, teams that have women, and they have to have more than one, at least 2, especially on their executive teams, those teams outperform in revenue and profits, all other teams. So the reason that you want women on your teams is because the diverse thinking actually makes the team better. They think differently, just like all of us, right? We have different life experiences, you bring those together, and because of that, we get different outcomes. So we decided to create an organization really focused on that. How do we help increase that? The state of Utah, less than 5% of our tech executives are women. Only 23.5% of all tech employees are female today. We have huge opportunities, and we have 4,000 open technology jobs. Right? We can't possibly fill all of these jobs with the number of people who are coming out. So there's great opportunity sitting here. So we decided to create this organization. Today it has more than 10,000 members, and it's all focused on how we build these networks. And for me personally, I started it because we thought it was an idea that can make interesting impact. But I didn't understand at the time that we built it the impact that it might have on me or our opportunity to help and bless other people's lives. As we sit here 10 years later, I know thousands of women I never would have met. Some of my best friends now come from this organization, and they're people where my path would never have crossed. The opportunities that I've been given in my career, even the jobs, come from that network that we built. And we'll have 2,500 high school girls go through a program on March 1st. We've had 4,000 so far. And we're impacting those young women's lives. They're changing careers and trajectories and their opportunity to provide for their families and give back because of some of the work that we're doing there. That's powerful stuff. We give our college award to a girl in the fall. Every one of those college girls who are in the midst of their STEM degree tell us after that they stayed committed to their STEM degree only because of the recognition that we gave them, because they were thinking of quitting. They didn't believe that they could do it. So there's all these things, these networks that have been built, opportunities that have been found. We recognize women in tech, obviously, in this every fall. And our stats, which we don't publish, are that every one of those women that we recognize within a year find another new opportunity for a career advancement. Just because of that. It's things we didn't know, but for me it's a passion because I see the impact that can have. And yours can be anything. But don't forget to spend time giving back and helping other people. And at certain times in your life, you'll have more time than others. I feel like I have the least amount of time right now, but it's still really important to me to find a way to do that. It also builds my network and it increases the opportunities that I can have because of that. And then one of the other things that I wanted to leave with you is this idea that you have to believe that you can. It's kind of, I guess, a theme through all of these things. But over and over again, I have been forced to figure out and believe that I can make my way through. Because there have been plenty of times when I wanted to quit. When I was venture fundraising and we were doing a follow-on round, and I had lots of rejections. So when you're raising, there's different categories to raise money in, right? And all of our venture friends have these theses and these investment portfolios and the ways they're going to fund you. So in the state of Utah, we have lots of guys who give money to enterprise software. We like enterprise software and big data in the state of Utah. Those are our paths. But if you're developing consumer technology with a little bit of hardware, our state's a tough place to be because we don't have funds that fund in that arena. So I'm in a place where I'm going after consumer technology in hardware in 3D printing. And so I remember there were days when I was fundraising when I wasn't sure, but there were literally days where I decided I wouldn't look at my email till I got to the office because I was pretty sure I didn't want to handle another rejection. Right? Because that's the situation that you get in, right? Or some other information that was going to tell me no. Right? Those were the hardest days. Being an entrepreneur has great ups, and it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. I also recommend you totally do it while you're young because your risk profile is so much lower than when you get older. But every day, right, there's something that you're dealing with. And I had to figure out if I believed that I could go for it even when it was the very hardest. And I think that's the thing that's true in everything in life, that you're going to have tons of trials in your personal life, in family, in work, in whatever it is. You're guaranteed to have things that challenge you. And ultimately, the definition of success comes not from how much money you make, but in your ability to actually get through them. And your ability to actually believe that you can get to the other side and that you will learn something from it. It's way more important to learn those skills and to contribute and to leverage your talents than it is to be evaluated by your bank account. Now, everyone would like millions of dollars. I totally get it. But at the end of the day, you're going to live a really long time, and you're going to influence a lot of people. And the things that you're going to take with you are how you treated people, how you believed in yourself, the impact that you made, and the opportunities that you granted both other people's and yourself that allowed you to become a better person. And that's kind of part of the lessons that I've learned as I've gone through those entrepreneurship cycles, because I've had lots of different ways to look at it, right? Being an entrepreneur in residence at Disney didn't mean I had to start everything from the ground up, right? I had infrastructure. When we would go test products at Disney, there's 100,000 people who will use your product in 4 hours, right, in the park, right? Getting the data was amazingly fabulous and great. That's a different experience than starting a company from the ground up. But in every one of those, you get tested. Your skill set gets tested. At Disney, my biggest test about my skill set was related to my ability to get teams motivated to work on my project if they didn't report to me. So we were launching a project in Walt Disney World, and I needed about 50 different departments to work with us in order to get that product launched, and not one of those people reported to me. So my job was to go figure out how to get all of those people to hit their deliverables, even if they didn't report to me along the way. That's a really interesting challenge. You have no control, you don't control their budget, so somehow they have to believe in your leadership ability enough to go after it. That's a great challenge to overcome. And by learning that, I got to translate that to all of my next opportunities, right? And I got to create that. And so every time I've had these steps, and sometimes they've been setbacks, and sometimes they've taken me forward, right? I got to figure out for myself if I believed I could get all of the way through that and create the outcomes that I wanted along the way. That was really my challenge. And so one of my challenges for you is that as you look at your opportunities in front of you and everything else, is that you have to believe in yourself, even if you fail, that you can get through it. So I think some of you probably take like the agile development classes. One of the key terms we always use there is fail fast. No one ever reminds you that fail fast also is really hard emotionally, right? But that is also true. And so you have to figure out how to both fail at some things and be okay with it. And have it not be a recognition of your failure as an entire person, but as a project that you get to learn from and not repeat that mistake again. Because everything that I've worked on has not turned out like I wanted, right? You get all the highlights of a career when someone comes in here and talks like that, but every person, they'd be lying to you otherwise, has also experienced really hard things in building their companies and setbacks that they didn't anticipate. And so it comes down to the pure grit that you have to get through life and everything that you're faced with. And when you do that, then you become successful as both a human and an entrepreneur or whatever endeavors that you're headed after through the course of life. So this is one of my favorite sayings that says, it's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives, it's what we do constantly. And I really believe that. It's what you decide to do and spend your time every day that truly defines who you are and what outcomes that you'll have. And so that's your challenge as an entrepreneur, as a student, as someone who is a part of a family, that it's what you do constantly that will shape your life and the lives of those around you. And those are the things that we want to become best at. Because at the end of the day, for me, it is about my family, right? And even though I work and I balance all of those other things, it is about doing things that allow opportunities and growth and achieving success for the things that matter very most to me along the way. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for letting me come, and you're a few minutes early, I think, right? So thank you.